Hello everyone, my name is Courtney, and together we will be setting up my April bullet journal spreads. For this month, I decided to challenge myself and use a dip pen with my Windsor & Newton ink in the color Viridian. In addition to this main color, I selected 4 softer blues and teals from different brands. Right away, the nib was giving me trouble. I had warmed up on different paper before diving into the journal, and this paper did not react the same way. The nib kept catching, which is a major problem for us left-handed calligraphers because I'm pushing instead of pulling, and the ink kept bleeding. So as a result, I really struggled with this month's setup and wanted to give up more than a few times. You can clearly see how much more comfortable I am with a brush pen on this paper than the dip pen. Just writing that word gratitude went so much more smoother than the April goals. This washi tape is only on the page for a brief moments before I decide that the colors clashed way too much and decided to remove it. If you've watched my previous monthly setups, then you know that I have an established layout. I begin each month with a 2-page spread that has 3 sections for my monthly goals, a gratitude log, and my monthly favorites. Like my monthly spreads, my weekly spreads also follow a consistent layout, and it includes a mini calendar with the current week highlighted, 6 rows for the days of the week, and a header for the week's current week number. The opposite page in the spread is always left blank so that I can fill it out throughout the month. I might fill it out with personal journaling, doodles, to-do lists, maybe even scrapbook, whatever I need or feel like. To challenge myself, I attempted to use the dip pen again, and I immediately regretted it. I think that the marker underneath was still wet, so when I used the ink, it bloomed, and it was incredibly frustrated. I have a moment where I decide whether or not to push through, and in the end, I decided to keep trying it out with moderate success. This word, the week, here is probably the only thing that I like that I did in dip pen throughout this whole month. For the second weekly spread, I try again with the dip pen, and you can see that the ink pooled and I just gave up. I got so frustrated and decided instead to switch to using a brush for the remainder of the process. Frustratingly, the ink did not handle well on the paper, or I should say the paper did not handle the ink well. It ended up lifting where the ink was thickest and kind of like pilling. The paper just kind of started to break down. As I continued to work on this month's setup, I got increasingly more discouraged and frustrated with myself and with my tools. The vision in my head for this month was just not what I ended up creating, and this lack of meeting my own personal expectations was really disheartening. But I had promised myself that I would view my bullet journal as a stress-free place to explore creativity and to bring intention into my everyday life. So with this goal in mind, I tried to pivot my approach and my mindset. I stopped fighting with the dip pen and decided to only use brushes, and I brought in some bolder strokes with a black pen. I set aside the delicate and airy look that I had planned for and instead went with something more bold and bright. I just kind of leaned into what was happening naturally instead of trying to force something that I just wasn't able to create. When I'm creating these weekly spreads, I try to keep two things in mind. The first is to have line weight variety. I personally find that the variation in strokes adds more interest to the page than color variation. It also helps establish a layout hierarchy, and it makes it easier for the eye to navigate around the page. The second thing that I like to keep in mind is to keep my design elements consistent within the current spread. Repeating motifs, even if it's just a simple box or stroke, will help the page feel cohesive. Because I had adjusted my look over halfway through, I decided to return to my initial monthly spread to add some finer, darker elements to keep the overall look a little bit more consistent. And there we are, all finished. Pushing through discouragement is tough to do, but I'm really glad that I was able to adjust my headspace and continue with this month's spreads. While it might not be my favorite, it does signify a moment of personal growth that I did not simply rip out the pages and instead continued creating and filming the process. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!